Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So we are here just to read the Srimad Bhagavatam again and share with you. And anyway, we get a lot out of reading, and we hope you do too. Hearing, and we're also encouraging everyone to please read Bhagavatam more and more.
Okay. It's Canto 4, Chapter 28, Text 18.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Text 18. King Puranjan was anxiously thinking, alas, my wife is encumbered by so many children. When I pass from this body, how will she be able to maintain all these family members? Alas, she will be greatly harassed by thoughts of family maintenance. Purport. All these thoughts of one's wife indicate that the king was overly engrossed with the thoughts of woman. Generally, a chaste woman becomes a very obedient wife. She causes her husband to become attached to his wife, and consequently he thinks of his wife very much at the time of death. This is a very dangerous situation, as is evident from the life of King Puranjan. If one thinks of his wife instead of Krishna at the time of death, he will certainly not return home back to Godhead, but will be forced to accept the body of a woman, and thus begin another chapter of material existence. Yeah, I need to speak to someone about this. No, I might have to ask my spiritual master when he's in town. Because I think, did I mention it before? Like, for me, we're worshipping a personal God. And so, this concept of, by the way, I'm not trying to say Prabhupada's not right. So I hope that don't come across.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's a great start.
But that if you think of your wife instead of Krishna, you're not going to go back to Godhead. Although now that I'm reading it, I'm thinking that Prabhupada is speaking to the non-devotees here, for one thing, not to the devotees, who may have a devotee wife, for example. But secondly, is it that black and white? So like you've served for 30, 40 years, all the austerities, all the sadhana, all the tolerating of devotees and all that. And then at the time of death, just because your husband or whatever is like sitting next to you looking a bit upset, oh, well, I'm going to miss you, dear, so bye. And then, bam, you're gone. And then you come back and you look like him. It's like, hey, what happened? So I'd like to think it isn't black and white and Krishna is a person, because Prabhupada stresses all the time he's the supreme person, and he's very clear that he's not, the ultimate isn't Brahman, he isn't formless, he's a person. He's got a mum, he's got a dad, he's got lady friends, he's got male friends, he's got pets, he's got likes and dislikes. So this person wouldn't be so callous and that. No, at the time of death, that's what you thought of, even though you've been doing this and even just the day before you were doing something, I don't know. Now you're dead. So there you go. Down the birth canal again for you, like Monopoly board. Down the birth canal. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, I get you. And, I guess the question is there a level of, say, like divine intervention? Is it that Krishna's like, no, it's okay?
I hope so.
Well, yeah. Sounds like you're setting yourself up and you want an easy way out.
Right? I want an easy way out, right?
You just need to control the mind.
Oh, my Lord.
And not become attached to me or, whoever else, we may become attached to anyone in the material world. The Lord, Maharaj Bharat was a great, great, great personality, and he became attached to a deer, and he had to take birth as a deer.
I know, that's just crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, but that is the philosophy that we're antakale chamamiva smaran mukve kalevaram. I said this once before, that this is the philosophy that whatever your consciousness is at the time of death, that state you will attain. So in one sense, for most people, it's very relieving because they think, oh, I just need to think of Krishna at the time of death. And then we live a life that is dedicated to the service of Krishna. So therefore, what happens is when we go to eat, we're thinking of Krishna. When we're cooking, we're thinking of Krishna. When we're driving, we're thinking of Krishna. When we're working, we're thinking of Krishna. When we're raising our kids, we're thinking of Krishna. When we're married to our partner, we're thinking of Krishna. So at the time of death, it'll be like, Krishna! And then that's it. But for you, it's like you're really dwelling on the fact that I'm going to be thinking of whatever, like a bowl of pasta and my husband.
Oh yeah, isn't it? I've come back as an Italian working in a restaurant.
Well, who knows, But the point is, like, make sure that, when you think of that bowl of pasta, you're like, yeah, I'm making it to offer it to Krishna and Nitai and Jagannath and, Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. And so,
okay.
But the science, as far as I've understood, and please, if you all want to correct, write it down in the comments, that basically, it's our subtle body needs to be kind of cleansed and purified so that the mind and the intelligence and the false ego, we were hearing a nice class this morning by Nandini Radhika Devi at Bhakti Center, and she was discussing from the Bhagavatam about the nature of the ego and how we have the false ego and we have the real ego, but even on the real ego level we can understand ourselves in different ways, but ultimately we want to achieve the perfection of truly identifying with ourselves as a spiritual being, eternal part and parcel of Krishna in the spiritual world, even though we may not have full realization, at least at this stage, of what that identity looks like as a person in the spiritual world. But at least we're identifying in that way that I do have an eternal relationship with Krishna, and I'm preparing for that now. But yeah, I get it. It is also daunting that, what is it? I remember just somehow we were in a class with some senior devotee, and we were saying, so like if you're driving your car down the street and you're like, listening to some Hare Krishna kirtan on the radio, but then all of a sudden like a bug or a bird flies into the windscreen and you go, oh my God, it's a bird, and then you hit a tree and you die, then it's like it's like you're going to come back as a bird, because the last thing you thought about was that bird or that deer. If a deer crosses the road and you smash into the deer, you're like, oh dear, boom, and then that's the last thing you think. I don't know if it's, theoretically it is kind of like that. I thought about a deer and, but if you're listening to kirtan, it's like all of these things. Of course, we have the story of Ajamil, and, he just chanted his son's name. So just got to chant more. I
just have to rename everyone.
Well, everyone you're around has spiritual names anyway. But you're just tolerating them, so I don't know what you're going to have to do.
I have to rename all the food I eat.
Yeah.
Anyway, I wasn't asking for me, it's for everyone.
Oh, yeah, that's true, yeah. Okay, so we'll read another one. Text 19. King Puranjan then began to think of his past dealings with his wife. He recalled that his wife would not take her dinner until he had finished his, that she would not take her bath until he had finished his, and that she was always very much attached to him, so much so that he would sometimes become angry and chastise her, that if he would sometimes become angry and chastise her, she would simply remain silent and tolerate his misbehavior. Now this is like textbook, like, brahmachari thinking, this is how my wife is going to turn out,
Yeah. Let me tell you about the brahmachari ashram. I don't know what they teach in that ashram, but anyway. Sorry, I interject.
Yeah, obviously in your ashram when you was growing up, they didn't teach you this. They didn't teach you all these things. Just kidding. Purport. A wife is always supposed to be submissive to her husband. Submission, mild behavior, and subservience are qualities in a wife. This is like a classic purport to extract some nectar from, especially an American Western audience, which makes a husband very thoughtful of her. For family life, it is very good for a husband to be attached to his wife, but it is not very good for spiritual advancement. Thus, Krishna consciousness must be established in every home. If a husband and wife are very much attached to one another in Krishna consciousness, they will both benefit because Krishna is the center of their existence, as if Prabhupada just heard your question and is answering it. Otherwise, if the husband is too much attached to his wife, he becomes a woman in his next life. The woman being overly attached to her husband becomes a man in her next life. Of course, it is an advantage for a woman to become a man, but it is not all advantageous for the man to become a woman. Classic. That's classic. Classic Prabhupada. And we were just reading somewhere. Yeah, about that, because what can be said? We are opening the floor up to some questions and comments.
Well, I've got something to say.
Oh, okay.
I don't actually have a problem with what's been said here, insofar as if the husband is qualified to warrant this type of behaviour and reciprocation from the wife. The problem is most of the men are just not worthy of a woman being submissive, mild, subservient. It's like they need a kick up the butt and they don't listen and they're just, lazy, whatever. And do you understand? It's like that classic example you hear in lectures where it's like everyone's like, the brahmacharis, where, well, I want my wife should be like Sita Devi. Yeah, but then you need to be like Lord Ram. Don't be like one of the monkeys, Even they're like all glorious, to be fair. So it's like that. It's like you can't be coming from the hood and expecting Sita Devi. What are you talking about?
You finished with your subservient, submissive attitude. What was the other quality, Prabhupada?
Mild behaviour.
That's it. Thank you. Mild behaviour. Woohoo! Get a T-shirt. I'm learning how to mild behavior. But it's true. It is actually very, very true. It's like we can't be disqualified in so many ways and expect a qualified partner. Like that. But the general understanding is that it's easier theoretically and more natural. Although it's some irony in this. It's supposed to be easier and more natural for a man to become a devotee because they're generally more logical creatures who are able to become detached. Whereas if you're in a lady's body, the natural interest is in producing children, looking after children, and taking care of and cultivating like a home and a nest in the material world. These are generalizations. But then also at the same time as saying this, Srila Prabhupada would often say that it is much more natural for ladies to become devotees because they have a natural tendency for being selfless. And also, Prabhupada would explain the most selfless love that we see in the material world is that of a mother. So then, because a mother selflessly cares for and looks after a child, so they naturally have the capacity to become selfless servants of Krishna. And we see that, it's not necessarily an absolute on either side, because some men are very advanced and definitely have a high level of capacity, but some ladies also have the same high level of capacity for making spiritual advancement. Mother Jamuna comes to mind, and how Prabhupada said very early on that she was already on the platform of Bhava. So, like that, and then of course men are degraded and let themselves down and let everyone else down, and women can do the same thing. So, like that. So it's a kind of a generalization. Okay, I think we're going to conclude there. Thank you all very much, and please, we like comments, questions, thoughts. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.